I'm Ashley,
And I'm Jasmin.
and you're tuned into Ham Radio Stranger Things podcast.
It's a ham radio.
The Cadillac of ham radios.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Ham Radio as Stranger Things podcast. We've got a great episode for you today, as usual. But first, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and I'm going to turn it over to Jasmin to let you know where you can find us on social media and where you can listen to the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. You can find us on Instagram at Ham Radio Media, all one word, on Twitter at HamThrow, on YouTube at Ham Radio Media, or using our handle HamRadio1983. We also have a Discord you can join, which is linked in the description of this episode. If you have a fan theory or question you want to share, you can email us at hamradiomedia@gmail.com. Ashley also has a fanfic on AO3 entitled Stranger Things College, which is also linked in the description. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and much more. If you like the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review. We have a lot of totally tubular stuff coming up, so be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the podcast and all of our new content.
So there's a directional dialogue they put in here of when they're in the upside down biking. It says, as they pedal down the post-apocalyptic street, spores whipping and swirling around them. So to me, when I read that in the script, it's a very interesting word choice there to use, post-apocalyptic. So to me, I think, that makes me question, okay, is the upside down like a vision of the future or something like that? Um, is that, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It could be, the only thing I can think is it could be like, okay, well, this is the way the world's gonna look like if Vecna wins, kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I could see that. Otherwise, I don't know. Like if it's supposed to be in the future, like Vecna said his whole thing was to like basically kill all the humans. So unless that's the implication that he's killed all the humans, and that's why there are no other humans um in the upside down. But then I feel like there would still be other animals. Do you know what I mean? Like not just upside down
Hmm.
creatures, but other animals because like I don't he can obviously control animals and I don't think he'd have a reason for killing all the animals on Earth. Like there doesn't seem to be a benefit to doing that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I just I find that word choice very, very interesting. And it's also that's one of the things I'm looking forward to next season is learning about what the upside down is. And then after that is when the Demobat sees them and lets out a shriek, which alerts Vecna. And this is something like when before I read the script, whenever I would watch season 4, I didn't know that he was on the first floor of the Krill house. Like I always just assumed that he just stayed up in the attic. I never realized that he can move around in the house, but it is interesting that he never leaves the house or doesn't seem to. Um, did you pick up on that when you watched
No, so
the
you're
show?
saying he's on the main floor?
Yeah, so in the script it says interior Krill house, first floor upside down.
Oh,
And that's, in the show, that's when after the Demobat shrieks, we see
yeah.
him turn around to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So apparently he was
Oh.
on the first floor. Like I
Yeah,
didn't I never knew that. And it's
I
so
thought
quick. It's
yeah,
so quick.
I thought he was just chilling in the attic the whole time.
Yeah, me too. But
Uh
apparently he moves around. I didn't.
yeah, and also like apparently he can go other places because like he leaves after they shoot him and light him on fire at the end of the season.
Yeah.
He's disappeared. So clearly he can move around. So that seems to imply that he wants to be at the house. You know, like that's the source of his
Yeah.
well, I want to say
Yeah.
his power. Or like maybe well, I kind of thought he was recharging, but if he's just walking around the main floor, then he's not recharging if he's not hooked up to the vine. So maybe he just prefers to be there because that implies he can go other places whenever he wants to. He's choosing to be there, which is interesting considering that like from every time thing he tells Nancy and Elle, he hates Hawkins, he doesn't want to be there, but he also doesn't escape into the real world when he has the chance, like he could have
Yeah,
gone through one of the
yeah.
gates. So
Which that's what I thought he was going to do. That's why I thought his plan was with opening the gates. Like I was like, oh, so he's trying to get out of there, but he never does.
yeah,
And
which
so I don't know if
implies
it's no, I was gonna say, so does that like mean that, because he's um a part of the hive mind, if he leaves the upside down, he'll die or something? I mean, the Demogorgon was able to go freely into reality just, I mean, at
yeah, the
night,
mind
but
player was too. So
yeah, I don't, it's
I
really weird.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I just because you're right. Like that does seem like that seems like a logical conclusion, right? He tried to escape, but he doesn't seem to like. I feel like he's gonna have to go into the real world at some point because if he stays the upside down, him and Elle just keep having mind battles. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
there's
yeah,
nowhere to go. They're kind of at a stalemate on that one. So that's got to happen. I feel like in season 5. So like I guess what does that imply? Does that imply there's something we don't know, or does that imply he's like kind of lying when he talks to Nancy and Elle about it because he's perfectly capable of leaving and like presumably like we know there are gates in Russia, right? Or there was one under the mall. So that seems to indicate he could just like pop over to Russia if he wanted to. Like he could just go other places, and he's despite the fact that he says he hates Hawkins, he's choosing to hang out at his old house that he presumably hates and stay there. So like what like is he lying or is there something about that place that allows him to connect to a power that like he like does he need to be there? He doesn't want to be there, but he needs to be there?
yeah, it's a lot of gray area with that. I don't think he's a 100% honest guy, to be honest with you. You know, I think, he's definitely embellished a lot of what he's talked about. But I mean, I personally would love to have seen him come out of one of those gates into reality. I think he could have done a lot of damage, a lot more damage. But I don't know. Yeah, it's strange to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, something that I think we already caught is, when we get to his monologue, that even on first watching the show, when he's monologuing, he originally says that his plan was to kill his entire family, including his father. But by the end of the monologue, he said I was young, I didn't know, I didn't quite know my own strength, so I framed my father for the murders as I had intended. So he lies
Yeah,
within the monologue.
like
Um,
I think he got a little lucky with
yeah.
that. Like I don't think he knew that his father was going to be framed and all that. I don't think, especially if his original plan was to kill all of them. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just trying to flex there, to be honest with you. But yeah, so we after that, then we go back to the Rainbow Room. It's a memory, and this is where so it says that 11 is playing chess, but I
The
believe
opening
this.
is different. The opening is
Yeah,
different to this scene. Yeah.
yeah, because I think in on the screen she's drawing or something.
Well,
She's
no,
not
before
playing
that,
chess.
so in no, you're right, she's drawing, but also like in the script it says there's like we cut so first it says that we flip into the upside down, the camera flips but it actually moves up, which I feel like they probably just changed because like that would be like it would give like it would make people sick. Do you know what I mean? Like if you were just flipping
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
They probably tried it that way and were like, "Whoa, no, let's not make people feel nauseous." But it's supposed to flip, and then from Vecna, we're supposed to cut to like Elle playing chess. And like, no, it says we're supposed to like zoom in on like the rainbow in the rainbow room, and it's supposed to be super eerie. but
Mhm.
in the final version, we cut to like one of like the heart monitor in Nevada at the Native Project, and then in like we zoom in on L in the tank into the memory, and then yeah, we see the scene opens like we see all the other kids in the Rainbow Room, and then we eventually move over to L drawing, not playing chess. So like, I want to hear your take on this, but my take was I feel like that was probably meant to humanize the kids before their death because we're about
Yeah.
to get to that. Like it's supposed to be like, look at them all playing. Like it's supposed to kind of lull you in and kind of humanize them in preparation for that moment. That's kind of how
Right.
I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too.
And I think the big thing, I don't know if you caught this, like when I read that in the script, I was like, whoa. So when they're describing where they are, they're like interior Hawkins boiler room day memory, and she being Elle, enters the boiler room. We recognize this from Bob's heroic journey in season 2. It's scary down here. Without a flashlight, it's very difficult to see. She hears a gurgling noise, turns, and so when I saw that, I was like, whoa, because like they're tying this back to Bob from season 2, and maybe you remember this, but I don't remember there being a scene in the boiler room in season 2. Like, do you know what they're talking about there?
Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly in season 2, when, like, Bob I think it's either, like, before or after he, gets the power and stuff turned back on, he's just going, like, through everything, and he does go down to the boiler room, but it doesn't look, like it does in season 4, but he does go down there briefly, like, very briefly.
Okay, so I feel like maybe in the original season 2 script that was a bigger deal because it like I don't remember that, and I feel like it seems more blink and miss it, and like you said, it looks different. So unless the implication is supposed to be they've upgraded the boiler room since the 70s, which I mean, fair. That's like a decade in between that time. So I mean that could be it too. Um, but it made me wonder because like, have you seen that blooper? Like when they released the blooper reel for season 4, where the scene between Will and Mike in California when they're sitting on Jonathan's bed,
Mhm,
like Noah was like, when I was the spy, and they're like, oh goddamn, like they're laughing because he said the wrong line. It
uh-huh,
it reminded me of that because they've said they're going to come back to stuff they wanted to get into from season 2 that they couldn't. So it made me wonder when I read that. I was like, is there something about the boiler room? Are we coming back to this boiler room? Like, is there something we're supposed to be connecting from Bob's like heroism in season 2? Like, there also could be something about when Will was the spy in season 2. Like, are we were they meaning to make a bigger connection there that either didn't quite land or they didn't quite get to? Like, are we supposed to be connecting something there? That was my question.
yeah, yeah, I mean, you know, you obviously don't, point something out like that in a script if there's not, something there because I mean, keep in mind like this when they say, in the script like this, I mean, this is like, this is not for the audience to see, you know. We're not going to read this, the actors and everybody else in the show are, not us. We're just watching what's on screen, you know. So clearly they wanted someone to get across like their, you know, call back to something, right?
Yeah, so I'm wondering maybe was that to the set designers? Or like I'm wondering who that was for, because I feel like calling back to Bob on that one doesn't really it's not like it's there for Millie Bobby Brown because like she's not in the scenes at the lab in season 2, you know what I mean, when they're making their
Yeah.
escape. So it's clearly not a direction to her. So I'm unless it's supposed to have some kind of gravitas to something that we're not privy to.
Mhm.
Or like I wonder if maybe it's kind of a call to like the directors in terms of where they want or like the camera operators and where they want the camera to go, or to the set designers. But you just said like I'd have to go back and watch it, but like it doesn't look the same. So I'm wondering who that direction's for. Like it's obviously for somebody that works on the show, you know.
Mhm.
It's got to be for someone, crew or cast or both. So I feel like I'm gonna go back and watch that those scenes from season 2 and see if I can catch anything because it's got to be for somebody. And like we wouldn't have this script, if it hadn't been, submitted for consideration. So yeah, I wonder what that's referring to or who that direction is for. And the other thing I noticed, you probably caught this too, is that in the script, the tracker slash like the device that controls Henry's powers is called an inhibitor, and in the final version, it's called Satyria.
Yeah, I caught that. I like
Yeah.
Soteria much better,
Oh
to
yeah.
be honest with you, because I mean it is an inhibitor, right? It inhibits him from using his powers. And I hope we learn more about Soteria next season. I just think it'd be cool to see what it is. But this whole scene right here is probably, well, number one, it was when I started to connect the dots about this orderly and who, you know, he could possibly be, you know, because it was super creepy the first time I watched it. And like, I loved this whole interaction between these two because it's here where you begin to see him change, you know? Like he's definitely, putting it on thick here of, the whole, I can't go with you, I'm not going with you. And then, she obviously takes the Satiri out of his deck and stuff. But I mean, again, I think it all goes back to this guy. I do think is I mean in some ways a liar, because I don't always understand like what he's, really what he's getting at here. Of I mean, obviously he's trying to manipulate her so that to let him out, you know. But it's like, because I feel like by this point he had already made up his mind, like he was going to, do the massacre and everything. And it's like, you know, if that was your plan, you know, you still could have gotten her to take that thing out of your neck before this. And, you know, like you could have still gone with her, you know? Like I hope I'm making sense on that.
Yeah,
Um
no, I get what you're saying, and something I noticed too is similar to how I think Brenner's characterization is a bit different in the final version versus the script, and I think it's up to Matthew Modine's acting about playing it more, like lack of emotion, versus trying to humanize. I also noticed this too here, whereas in the script, like it describes Henry as being surprised and moved by Eleven's offer, but in the final version, if you look at his face he displays no emotion right up to the end when he smiles. And so, like, you know what I mean? That was the sense for me too. I didn't know what was wrong, but that was kind of when I started too to be like, okay, something's off about this guy. I don't know what it is, but
yeah,
something is
yeah.
off about this guy. And I feel like that was an acting choice because I feel like they'd gone with the original and been like, he's surprised and moved by the offer. I feel like him being Vecna, being one the massacre kind of would have come out of left field, but because in this scene, I like the way I interpret it was, he's so hungry and so, kind of, excited about getting out and being able to kill everybody. And, he thinks, okay, he's going to take 11 with him and they're going to take over the world. Like, he's so, like, hungry for this goal that he's struggling to contain that. And so that's why you see no emotion until right at the end when he smiles. And there's something creepy about his smile that wasn't there before. And 11 doesn't see it because he's earned her trust. And quite frankly, everyone around her looks like that. You know what I mean? Like everyone else, all the kids, they're all duplicitous, right? They're all, like as an audience, remember, we recognize malintent, but she's grown up in this environment, so she doesn't see it. She doesn't see it at all. She has no way of like registering, like that kind of like body language because you need you need kind of the social interaction that you get in the real world to be able to do that, you know? Um
Right.
and and just about that, it made me think of how, we talked about this last time, but what surprises both Henry and Brenner in season 4 is they think that Eleven's going to be easy to manipulate, and they think they're going to be able to take advantage of her, and she's just going to react like she always has, and they're surprised when she doesn't, because she's had these experiences that have taught her more about, she's still working on it, but being able to read body language, facial expression, know when someone's being dishonest, know when something is off, when they're being duplicitous, and she's learning that from the other people in her life who are, trying to help her read and navigate and understand the world. And like I really love that about her character, that she's learning this, and while it's a work in progress, like you see it on her face when she's like, "You think I'm gonna fall for this, and I'm not. I'm not that kid anymore," you know? Um,
Yeah, yeah. And but it's like, what he tells her, like, "I'm not going with you." And then he says, "I meant what I said when I call this lab a prison, and everyone here is a prisoner, not just you, not just your brothers and sisters, the guards too, the nurses, me." Okay, well, dude, I mean, well, if that's the case, then why aren't you trying to leave with her? And so the only explanation I can come up with is like things didn't go exactly the way he planned, I don't think. 'Cause I think he had every intentions of, okay, I have to get this kid out of here so that I can go kill the others. And then after that's done, then I'll meet back with back up with her outside the lab fence, and we can go and, live out this evil plan that I have. And it just didn't, work out that way because obviously the guards came and, you know, he had to think quick and he locked her in that broom closet and, where she was in within earshot of everything that was happening. And yeah, it's just yeah, I don't I mean, he's very compelling. He certainly is, but I don't I don't really understand him a lot, Um, his
yeah, and like
logic.
I have to rewatch. Like I haven't rewatched the scene where the guards find them, but yeah, but kind of something I was kind of thinking in retrospect was, why didn't he just like shove her through the hole? Do you know what I mean? Like when they
I
catch
know,
them, do you
I
know what I mean? Like
know.
she's small enough, he could have been like, go, and just like shoved her through the grate, put the grate back on, and then like, yeah, they were gonna grab him anyway, but like block the hole with his body. Do you know what I mean? Like if the goal is to get her out so he can carry out the massacre, and that point Satir is already
Yeah,
out of his neck.
yeah.
Like
He could have
it's
just been like, "Just get out of here, run," you
like
know?
go and then
Yeah,
killed every, like that actually would have worked as a better plan, because then he could have killed everybody at the lab, met up with her, and she could have been like, what happened, and he would have been like, oh, like I had to, like I had to defend myself, I had to like kill, like I had to kill people in order to get out. And you phrase it like that, I would have been like, okay, like you had to do this in order to escape, you know and then he probably, like she probably would have gone with him. It might have taken her a while before she realized what he was up to. So it almost makes me think that he, like, not that he was intending for it to work out that way, but once the opportunity presented itself, is like, instead of just moving her away, he's like, I'm just gonna stick her in a broom closet, and because like he wanted to kill everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like he wanted all of that to happen. Do you know what I mean? Because that seems like the better plan. So yeah, like what's he up to there?
yeah, yeah. I
Just
mean, the dude's obviously a psychopath, so, I mean,
yeah,
like, he really is, and, like, in this moment, like, when she takes, the,
Soteria.
yeah, sorry, the Soteria out of his neck, and he, picks it up and, looks at it and, he has that really creepy smile on his face and is like, "Who knew something so small could cause so much damage and, or cause so much trouble rather." Um, like, and in that moment, like, he changed, like, instantly, like that, and that's when I knew, I was like, "This guy, like, there's something about this guy." Because he changed, like, in that moment, he, I think, instantly became a murderer because he's like, I have my abilities back now, and I can go do what it is that I have planned to do. Now, I think the question is for me is how long has he planned? How long did he plan to do the massacre? And what, for him, you know, set him off? Was it, when he got, punished for helping 11, that he realized, like, I have to do it now? I mean, for me, that's a pretty big question because it's like, he obviously manipulated 11 because he knew that he could, if anybody, like, he could get her to do it. I mean, if that's not if that wasn't the case, then he wouldn't have showed her the Soteria implant to begin with, you know?
Yeah, for sure, like 100%. And like the thing I don't get is like he's really angry, and like when he realizes she's left the broom closet, like she's left the storage closet. But I'm like, dude, if you just shoved her through the hole or told her to
I
run,
know, I
she would have been
know.
outside the property. So like you knowingly took her upstairs, put her in a broom
Yeah,
closet, and then you're surprised that when she heard people screaming she came out of the broom closet? Like,
yeah,
so it like it's I don't know if there was like something we're not getting there or if it was just for dramatic effect, but yeah, I don't unless of course it was a test. Do you know what I mean? To see if she would listen to him? Like, does he have her under his control? But if it was a test, like maybe that's where the anger is coming from. That like he's mad because he realizes he can't. She's not as controllable as he thought. But if that's the case, I don't see why he'd be surprised years later.
yeah, and and too, like, he grabs her by the hand and says to come with him. I mean, it's, you know I mean, he
Yeah.
wanted her to be there, and I don't know if it's like, from the writer's standpoint, they wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here and show us and Eleven, you know, disguised
Like
true
what
nature.
like what he was capable of.
Yeah,
Um
I mean, I don't
yeah,
I
because I
don't
guess if
really
she
get that.
leaves because yeah, I just thinking about like thinking all the way through. If she goes to the tunnel and escapes that way, then A, she escapes several years before she's supposed to, quote unquote. And two, I feel like they like we as the audience would see what he was capable of, but then they just kind of go off. You don't really get to where we get in season one. But if that's the case, I feel like they needed to have put in some kind of other obstacle for why they couldn't have gone back through why she couldn't have gone through the tunnel, you know? Um
Yeah, yeah,
like a gas coming out of it or them throwing something or just something that like or her snagging on something like something that's going to prevent her because she only goes that way because he takes her hand and they run. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's kind of a plot hole now that I think about it, because that doesn't
yeah,
make any sense. Because she like that's what she ultimately does. Like in season one, we don't know what kind of sets that off, but she ultimately somehow like some part of her brain remembers that, and that's how she does wind up escaping. So if she knows that, like why she wouldn't do that before, like why he would prevent her. Yeah, that's a good point we've discovered.
yeah, and to me, I feel like, because they've had number 1 in the back of their back pocket for a long time. It's something that, we know for the companion novels and stuff, like, they were able to talk about anything they wanted to. They just couldn't bring up number 1 or anything like that because it was something they wanted to bring up in the show. But I think this is something where this is an example of, what happens when you decide to wait until the penultimate season of your show to reveal this kind of stuff, and not really have any, you know, clues or breadcrumbs in the previous seasons to even point to any of this. I do think that, that is a risk I think you have to take. But again, I think that's what's, really happened here. Like, think they, you know, for whatever reason in seasons 2 and 3 they chose not to touch on any of this, and they chose to wait until the end of the series to bring it up. And, you know, I think this is kind of a victim of that. That's just my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that unless like either we're missing something that's going to be filled in next season, or they just realized that they should have dropped some breadcrumbs earlier, and because they waited on the reveal, they and also I feel like because it wasn't originally the show was not originally intended to be a series. There's going to be things like that where like in order to make it fit with what we already have we kind of got to tweak it a little bit, which they wouldn't have had to do had they originally plotted out a whole series. So either we're missing something there, or it's just in order to make it fit, it has to be this particular way. It's also that like we may be giving Henry too much credit here. You know what I mean? Like he had a plan, and when that plan went awry, he not panicked, but just improvised. And I mean, this guy's obviously like messed up in the head. So you know what I mean? Like maybe we're giving him too much credit in terms of logical thinking, like he's been plotting this
Yeah.
for a while, but in the moment he improvised and he went with in the moment what he, or like maybe he wanted to take her with him kind of thing. Like maybe the plan was never for her to separately escape. It was always to manipulate her into taking the chip out. But then I don't know how he would have convinced her to go back up. Like, was he intending for the guards to find? You know what I mean? Did he think the guards were going to find them? Because otherwise, like, okay, you manipulate her, she takes the chip out, but then she's free to go. Or did he think he was going to be able to manipulate her and be like, okay, let's go out together instead of you go this way, I'll go another way? You know?
Yeah, and
Um,
2, he gave her his key card. So I'm like, how did he get down there without a key card? Like, cause
oh, good point.
he was already in the boiler room when she went down there. Like, so how did he get down there without a key card? Did
Unless
he
his key card, maybe they had to replace his key card because he's like, I can't find my key card, and they
Yeah,
replaced it because like unless they replaced it, I mean, you'd think Brenner would have caught on like, hey, you were helping 11, now your key card's gone. Unless maybe just Brenner was so arrogant, he's like, well, nothing like that could have happened. You haven't given it to her because like that would mean I'm not in control of you, and he just couldn't, even accept that reality. I could see that being the case because we know, I mean, Brenner has some pretty big blind spots, obviously. Unless the person who issues the key cards isn't in constant communication with Brenner, that could be a thing. Or maybe he had a spare card or something. Like
yeah,
I don't know. Like unless there's another no, but there isn't another way because she needs the key card. So and she still has the key card, right? When in order to get down there. So yeah, either he has a duplicate or he somehow got another one. Yeah, well, unless of course the other orderlies aren't aware that he's one of the numbers in his powers. Because if they're not aware of that, if Brenner hasn't told them, or they started working at the lab later, they think they're just giving an orderly a key card. Um, Maybe that's it. I don't know.
yeah. So after that, then we go back to Russia, and no one cares about that. So, uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I think this is like the final like Russian scenes, right, of this episode.
Yeah.
So about the Stranger Things play, right? I don't want to talk about this play, Jasmine. I really don't. But I mean, it's Stranger Things content, and you know it's out there. Um, so I mean, I just like wonder like, is it as canon as people are making it out to be? Because like I've seen on Twitter, like a few Twitter users who've been able to see it a couple times have said like they've changed things since the opening night or whatever, including the ending of the play. I mean, I don't know like why they would do that. You know, if this is canon. if this is like, they I don't know, their whole attitude towards this play and all, like, they think it's as simple as, like, taking a trip to Disney World. It just behooves me, Jasmine. It really does. They think it's just so easy for people to afford a trip to London, England to watch a 3-hour-long stage play. I mean, it's just beyond me, you know? And then the whole, you don't have to watch it to be, prepared for season 5, but, it holds the key to the end, and you like, we want people to watch it. Like, I don't get it. I mean, Jasmine, what do you think? I mean, I know you haven't read the spoilers of the play. I mean, I have, but I mean, I don't get like where they're coming from with the marketing behind this. You know?
Yeah, I don't really get it either. I mean, they're acting like as if, like it'd be one thing if it had a touring production. So, every major city with like the theater district could see the play, where things make the runs of like different towns. But that's not the case. It's only available in the UK. So I do think that's a bit weird because, like you said, they're acting like it's a hop, skip, and a jump, and it's not. And especially in this economy, I mean, people have even less money than they did even last year because, like, the same amount of money does not go as far as it once did. So again, not a hop, skip, and a jump, and people don't really have the money to go see it. And like you said, they're changing stuff. So I mean, obviously, there's elements of canon pulled from the show, but beyond that, I mean, it's not canon because I mean, if you're changing the ending and like between productions, um, that can't be canon. There's no way like that. That just cannot be canon because then the canon is contradicting itself between productions, and that just doesn't work. And I have a feeling there might be elements of whatever this is in the final version of season, like for season 5, but I honestly feel like they'll mostly ignore it just because they kind of have to. Because, like, from what I have seen, like, they've A, changed the ending several times, and B, the whole thing about Bob having a sister and that sister being in love and, like, a relationship with Henry Creel was apparently Jack Thorne's idea to humanize Henry. So the fact that it's coming from somebody outside the Stranger Things team, who also was the quote like brains behind Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which was so non-canon. The characterizations of that made no sense. So it didn't like include key characters. Plus, like, there's I've heard things like I think you shared with me that, like Ted and Karen were like making out the whole time, which makes no sense because they didn't like start dating until after Karen had like graduated. Nancy says that in season 1. The like
Yeah, and he's a few years older than she is.
yeah, it says my mom was younger, he was older, and it's at least implied to me that Karen graduated, went off and had a life and kind of like, especially after what she says in season 3 to Nancy about like how the world just beats you down. Like, my impression there was, she graduated, she went off in the world, she had dreams of what she wanted for her career that was obviously more exciting than jazzercise housewife, and then the world beat her down. She got rejected so much. Like, I don't know if she wanted to be an actor, like something where she'd be facing a lot of rejection. And then it just beat her down. She came back to her small hometown, maybe for the holidays or just because she couldn't afford to be where she was. And she met Ted and she kind of like, kind of gave up. That was kind of the implication I got from what Nancy and Karen say between seasons 1 and 3. Also, Ted's not a passionate person. Like, they make that pretty clear.
Yeah,
Like, I think
yeah,
Karen could dance naked in front of him, and I don't know if he'd notice. Like that's kind of
yeah,
who Ted
yeah,
is. Like he probably couldn't name his kid's favorite color. Like he's just kind of there, and so that, and also like I've heard that like the Hendersons are in it, like supposedly Dustin's parents, which is so non-canon because we don't even know what's up with Dustin's dad, but we know he only moved to Hawkins when he was in the 5th grade. So presumably they lived somewhere else that's not in Indiana, or if it is in Indiana, it's farther away than Indianapolis in the 5th grade. And did his dad die? Did he leave the family? We don't know, but we know he did not attend Hawkins High, right? Also, Henry Cavill is far too young to have been attending high school in this time period. So, no, I don't think it's canon. I think they're just saying that to get people to come out and see it, but that's just it's impossible for it to be canon based on what we know after 4 seasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like your Stranger Things, you're very popular over in the UK, like, you don't have to do that to get butts in seats, you I mean, I don't I mean, again, I don't get it, and look, we're not trying to tell people not to go see it. I mean, if you have the financial means to go to London to see it, that's great. I mean, you should absolutely do that. But, you know, I mean, it just kills me to, go on Twitter and see all these people believing this with all their hearts of, you know, like, "Oh, just wait, it was season 5," and it's like, I mean, but what if it's not in season 5? You know? What if what they show in the play, what if season 5 never touches on that and goes completely against that? What then? Hmm? And, yeah, I don't think that the Henry Creel stuff needed to be in it. I mean, that to me is stuff that needs to be reserved for the show. I mean, that's or at least on screen. And that's just the way I feel about it. And, the other stuff I've seen in it, I mean, it's neat, but it is so contradictory to what's been established already in the show, and, it just to me, it makes everything just much more confusing, and it undercuts a lot, and I just don't think it's necessary, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's necessary. And like I've said this before, but if they'd said this is an alternative universe or like a what if, I think that would have been fine. You know, if we're just establishing right after that, this is a what if scenario, this is an alternate universe, cool. But because
Yeah,
they haven't said
yeah,
that and they're trying to make it canon, it's like, well, it's clearly not canon, you know?
yeah, and and again, I'm not, trying to give away too many spoilers from what I've read, but them trying to give Dr. Brenner, this backstory of his motivations and all that for his project and all that, I don't like it. I mean, well, it's interesting, but I'm like, you don't have to do that. I mean, the Duffers have already said like this dude is just a scientist who, you know, thinks through everything through a scientific lens, and I think for a character like Brenner, that should be enough. You don't have to, give him this added layer of motivation for this. He's a scientist. He's curious. I mean, I that's just how I feel about it. And I mean, the fact that they've changed a lot in it. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's canon. And I hate to say that, but I don't. You know, what I do think is canon though? That virtual reality game that came out like a month
Mm,
ago.
yeah.
And I think we have to ask ourselves. So the product that is like a $300 total product, including the console and the game, versus a 3 hour long stage play that someone you would have to pay up to $5,000 to go see. Which one is more accessible to the public? And also, like they barely advertise the game at all. I mean, they did the trailer on Stranger Things Day. They've done a few things here and there, but the Stranger Things official accounts, they didn't put anything out about it. But man, for this play, it's been like marketing galore. And so I just, ask people like, think about it. You know, this virtual reality game, if you've seen the trailer, then you know kind of what's in it. Or if by now, if you bought the game and you've played it, then by now you kind of know. But during the time all the, uproar of this play, this game has quietly come out, and I've seen the trailer for the play. I mean the game. And that to me, because you have Matthew Modine and Jamie Kimmel-Bauer voicing their characters respectively, and just what I've seen from the trailer and stuff of that game, that one definitely is canon, without a doubt. And, just from what I've seen in the play, it just, other than the characters, it's not canon to me. I'm sorry, it's not. Um, and and I know they couldn't have predicted anything about the strikes, but especially the game, I'm really surprised that they released that before season 5,
Yeah, me too.
'cause to me it reveals a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think it's as the marketing is weird, and I don't think it's as canon as everybody seems to think it is.
I don't like to talk about the play a lot because it makes me mad every time every time I talk about it. So I try not to
Yeah,
talk about it too much.
yeah. So to wrap it up and get us out of here, do we want to talk about the kind of the season 5 updates that we've filming updates that we've gotten?
Yeah. Um, so this is all we have up to date. So we know that principal photography on season 5 is set to begin the second week of January, and according to the Duffer Brothers, there will be 8 episodes in season 5. The cast has read 6 out of the 8 episodes, at least at the time of this recording. So, and they've said like we would get a table read before the end of the year. Well, at the time of this recording, we have 2 weeks until the end of the year, so you never know what Christmas may bring.
I mean,
Um,
it could be a Christmas. They could be dropping
yeah,
it on
yeah,
Christmas or something. You know what I mean?
or New
Like,
Year's Eve, you know. Um, and then they said that they'll get back together and read the final 2 episodes, and they said it'll be very emotional. Which I know when people again, like you talk about people taking things out of context, like people are like, oh, because they like, oh, someone's gonna die, and like, I mean, maybe, but I think they meant like this is the final tape read they're ever gonna have for this show. And when you spent 10 years of your life with something and with these people, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be very emotional, for it to be the last time. And they did say that the final 2 episodes will be like a season 4 length. I'm kind of hoping that we'll have several episodes in season 5 that are at least an hour long, because I mean, one of my biggest fears for season 5 is they're not going to have enough time. And I think if Netflix, tells them you can do supersized episodes again, do it. I mean, I don't
I
think they
disagree
will.
actually, because I feel like the fact that they were allowed to do that for season 4 made it worse. Because every
Yeah,
other season is so tight in terms of the storytelling, and then you get to season 4 and it's like, okay, it felt so bloated, but at the same time, it felt like there's stuff you didn't cover because you quote ran out of time. It's like, well, we wanted more, but not more of this, and I feel like having the last 2 episodes be an hour makes sense. But I feel like having the rest of them be like 30 to 45 minutes, like the previous seasons, I would hope is going to make for tighter storytelling rather than having the characters like like this past season we saw them drive around in a van, and there was things about the Russian plot that like went over, like where it's like, yeah, you could have montaged that, you could have sped that up. So I'm hoping that a shorter episode run for like what that would be like, I guess 5 or 6 of the episodes, and then the longer runtime for the last two, um would hopefully make for the kind of like succinct storytelling we got in seasons 1 through 3. That would be my hope.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I do think that, um, some episodes season 4 could definitely have been shorter. But I'm like, for me, I'm just, what I meant was like, because I'm worried about them not being able to tell everything in season 5, and then not have enough time to do that. Like I'm saying, if you need an hour to tell something, like, do it, not just, season 4, it was a lot about, like, filling time, I guess, so that we could get to season 5. But yeah, again, like, that's probably one of my chief worries about season 5 is they have a lot to wrap up, and I just worry they're not gonna have enough time to do that.
Yeah, I get that.
Or I would be satisfied if they had, like, 10 episodes, you know?
Yeah.
Condense some of the runtime and just have more episodes. But that's not, the way they like to do things. So, all right, Jasmine, did you want to discuss anything else, or
No,
we
I
good?
think I think that's all, folks. I think we're good.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, as always, for joining us, and stay tuned for more from the Ham Radio podcast.
And that's our show. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Our theme music is provided by Neon Knights, and our sound editing is provided by Ashton Cooper. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. Please join us next time, same dial, same time.
Over and out.